The forest in Gévaudan was alive, but not in the way of chirping birds or rustling animals. It breathed unease. The skeletal branches above whispered secrets to one another, shifting ominously with every gust of icy wind. Then came the howl, a sound so low, so primal, it made the marrow in my bones shiver. I clutched the knife I carried at my side, though it felt laughably small against the monstrous presence I could feel but not yet see. Somewhere in the oppressive darkness beyond the trees, it was watching me. My name is Alexander Perrin, and I was never meant to be a hunter. I was born into a family of farmers. My hands were meant to work the soil, not wield weapons. But the beast left no room for choice. I remember the night it all began. The day had been long, spent gathering wood for the winter. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, my sister Camille had gone to the village to fetch water from the well. She was only 16. I should have gone instead. I was older, stronger, and faster, but Camille was always so eager to help. When she didn't return by sundown, I went looking for her. The village well was only a short walk, but the woods made the air heavy. Even the stars seemed to withdraw their light. I found her shawl first, caught on the bramble, then the footprints, massive, impossibly large paw prints, embedded deep in the mud. I ran to the clearing, shouting her name, my voice trembling. There, beneath the tree, I saw what was left of her. Her body had been torn apart, as though something had tried to unmake her. Her eyes stared blankly at the sky, her throat torn open in a way that no wolf could accomplish. Camille, my sweet sister, was gone. I vowed to avenge her. But how does a farmer fight something that even the king's hunters fear? Between my sister Camille's death and the desperate hunt years later, Gévaudan endured a nightmare that bled into every corner of our lives. The beast's attacks were unrelenting, its cruelty unmatched. It tore through shepherdesses, hunters, and merchants alike, leaving behind mangled remains that defied reason. People whispered that the land itself had turned cursed, a shadow falling over our once thriving village. In the first winter of the beast's reign, terror seeped into every home. The blacksmith's daughter, Lucille, was taken just steps from her front door. Her father's cries echoed through the night as he found her lifeless body at the forest's edge, her chest ripped open, her heart missing. It was then that we realized precautions, locking doors, keeping close to home, were futile. The beast struck wherever it wished. As the death toll climbed, so too did the paranoia. Villagers whispered that the beast was not an animal, but a demon sent as punishment. Some claimed it was summoned by witches among us. Old women living alone became scapegoats, beaten and cast out, their cries drowned by the crowd's fear-driven fervor. Families abandoned their homes, leaving farms to wither. Those who stayed barricaded their doors, praying the beast wouldn't come for them. In the summer of 1765, 5 merchants set out on the forest road, armed and vigilant, yet they too fell victim. Days later, their wagon was found overturned, the wood shredded as if by enormous claws. 2 survivors, pale and shaking, stumbled into the village, speaking of glowing silver eyes and unnatural cunning. They swore there were 2 beasts, one massive and black, the other smaller and reddish, working together in a grotesque partnership. But the survivors were so broken that many dismissed their claims, though I knew better. The king sent hunters to end the terror. Muskets fired, blood was spilled, and for a time, we dared to hope. One of the hunters, François Antoine, even killed a massive wolf and paraded its body through the village. Yet hope was short-lived. By autumn, the attacks resumed, more brutal than ever. The beast was no ordinary wolf. It was something darker, something that seemed to mock us at every turn. A boy of 12, found torn apart near the riverbank, marked the beast's horrifying return. It was during this time that I began to see a pattern. The beast struck those who wandered near the woods, almost as if guarding something. It rarely entered the heart of the village, preferring to stalk the outskirts and isolate its prey. Its cunning was no longer in question. It was a hunter, and we were the hunted. By the 3rd year, Gévaudan was unrecognizable. The marketplace stood empty. The church was filled with tearful prayers, and despair hung in the air like a shroud. My sister's death haunted me, her face a constant specter in my dreams. I spent countless nights in the woods, knife in hand, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the beast. But it came only when it wished, striking with the precision of a shadow. And yet, through all this, I clung to one desperate hope, that one day the beast would falter, and when it did, I would be ready. Years passed, and the beast's shadow loomed over Gévaudan. It claimed victims almost weekly, children torn from their homes, women dragged screaming into the woods, even hunters with muskets who thought themselves safe. The beast played with us, as if savoring our terror. By the winter of 1766, the village was desperate. My name had been whispered with cautious hope. I wasn't the strongest or the smartest, but my dogged determination to hunt the creature had made me infamous. My knowledge of the woods was unmatched, and some believed I had a connection to the supernatural, though that was nonsense. When a boy from the neighboring hamlet disappeared, his parents came to me. I was reluctant to take up the hunt again. Many had died in this pursuit, but their grief was unbearable. I couldn't turn away. I gathered my things, a rusty musket, a crude spear, and a knife that had served me well in hunting deer. Etienne, the town's oldest hunter, volunteered to join me. The sun was setting as we entered the woods, its dying light casting long shadows that seemed to mock us. The Gévaudan forest was treacherous, even without a beast lurking in its shadows. The trees stood like sentinels, their bare branches stretching out as if trying to ensnare us. Our breath fogged in the cold air, and the snow muffled every step. I hated the silence. It was too perfect, too unnatural. It was as if the forest itself was waiting. "Keep your eyes open," Etienne whispered. His voice was as steady as his hand on his musket, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He was a veteran hunter, yet even he had no illusions about what we were up against. We followed the boy's tracks until they vanished in the snow. Then, in a small clearing, we found him, or what was left. His small body lay sprawled on the ground, his chest torn open as if by claws the size of daggers. His face was locked in a scream, frozen in terror. Blood stained the snow in wide arcs, as though he had fought desperately before succumbing. But what chilled me most were the paw prints leading away from the scene. They were massive, larger than any wolf's, and they were spaced far apart, as though the creature moved not on all fours, but upright. Etienne crossed himself. "We need to go back," he said, his voice cracking. Before I could respond, the forest itself seemed to exhale. A low growl, so deep it felt like the earth was groaning, reverberated through the air. My heart froze. "It's here," Etienne whispered. He raised his musket, his hands trembling. The beast emerged from the shadows, its hulking form larger than I had imagined. Its fur was black and matted, its snout long and sharp like a dagger. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, two orbs of molten silver. But it was its teeth that haunted me most, rows of jagged fangs that seemed too large for its mouth. Etienne fired, the musket ball striking the creature's shoulder. It staggered, growled, and then turned its gaze on us. I saw intelligence in those eyes, a cruel, mocking awareness. The beast let out a roar that shook the trees, then charged. "Run!" Etienne screamed. I didn't need to be told twice. The forest became a blur of white and black as I sprinted, the beast's growls echoing behind me. I could hear its heavy footfalls, closing the distance with terrifying speed. I stumbled over a root, barely catching myself in time to avoid falling. The cold air burned my lungs and my legs felt like lead, but I couldn't stop. Then came the scream. I looked back just in time to see the beast leap onto Etienne, its massive jaws closing around his throat. His musket fell uselessly to the ground as he collapsed. I wanted to help him, but fear held me prisoner. All I could do was run. I burst into the village square, covered in blood and snow. The villagers gathered around me, their faces pale with fear. "The beast is coming," I shouted, collapsing to my knees. The alarm was raised. Men armed themselves with crude weapons, pitchforks, scythes, and hunting rifles. Among them was Jean Chastel, a reclusive hunter known for his strange ways. He carried a musket with silver bullets, which he claimed were blessed by a priest. "Tonight we kill the demon," he said. Hours passed in tense silence. We stood in the square, our torches casting long, flickering shadows. Every sound, a snapping branch, a distant rustle, made us jump. Then, just before dawn, it came. The beast emerged from the forest, its massive form illuminated by the torchlight. It moved with an almost human grace, its silver eyes locked on me. The men opened fire, their musket balls tearing into its flesh, but the beast barely flinched. It leapt among us, its claws slashing through men as if they were paper. I grabbed my spear and charged, plunging it into the creature's side. It howled, a sound so terrible it made the earth tremble. It turned on me, its jaws snapping inches from my face. Shastel's musket thundered, and the beast collapsed. Its lifeless eyes still burned with fury. We burned its body at dawn, its ashes scattered across the hills. The attacks ceased, but the shadow of the beast lingered. Even now, years later, I wake in the night, haunted by its growl. Some say the beast was a wolf. Others say it was a demon. I only know one thing. Whatever it was no animal, and I pray it never returns.